Hey everybody, this is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook video about the state of the DisUnion, troops, AI bubbles, corporate death throes, and what is going on there in general. Oh, I should have checked my audio settings before I started. Anyways, yeah, so I hope everybody's doing well. Yeah, it's not all going to be negative, but I just need something to do. What is a thumbnail? It's the thing. Apparently, people click on things that are like super intense and about what's happening in the present. Um, but yeah, there is some. It's not necessarily actually not necessarily bad things, just intense things. I'll just say like intense things are happening, not necessarily bad things. And Yeah, so one of the things that has just happened, like as of today, okay, my audio is good. One of the things that just happened as of this morning is Donald Trump has ordered the. Actually, it's not really new, but there was another order that Donald Trump gave to Pete Hegseth to provide all necessary troops to protect war ravaged Portland and any of our ICE facilities. It's not just Portland, but so let me see if I can get that full statement. So yeah, Donald Trump has just ordered more formally the U.S. military. Like this is all forces. Obviously, the Army, Marines, National Guard, but yeah, here President Trump directed the deployment of U.S. troops to Portland, Oregon, and immigration and customs enforcement facilities nationwide on September 27, 2025, authorizing full force to counter attacks by Antifa. What that exactly that means, we'll get into that later. And other domestic terrorists. The order issued via Truth Social at the request of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and directing Secretary of War Pete Hegseth response to protests at Portland's ICE office since June, including vandalism and clashes following a deadly shooting at a Dallas ICE facility on September 24th. Oregon officials and Democrats, include Governor Tina Kotek or Senator Ron Wyden, condemned the move as federal overreach, while supporters praised it as essential protection for federal assets. These are armored vehicles full of federal agents arriving at the federal building in Portland as tensions with Antifa rise. Earlier this morning, President Trump ordered troops into Portland to detect ICE facilities. That's a right winger posting that, so obviously it's just like random things. Gavin Newsom says Governor of California, Donald Trump is waging war on American cities. The courts have already said this is illegal. According to this is Gavin Newsom talking, but he's pushing forward anyway. This isn't about holding violent organizations accountable. This is about inciting violence and chaos so that he can continue to consolidate power. Wake up, America. That's Gavin. Gavin Newsom. California is the largest. California and New York are like two of the biggest, most powerful, heavily Democratic states in the United States, right? So that's they're not happy with that. Gavin Newsom and his circles are not happy with that. Let's put it that way. According to Laura Loomer, which is not a great person. I do not support any of these people actually that I'm sharing. This is just what is happening in the United States. Troops are being deployed to combat Antifa. It has been a long time coming. Thank you, President Trump. So the Secretary of War, there's a big meeting that was just convened, right? Yeah, it was a rare, urgent meeting of hundreds of generals and admirals. There's questions like, what was that for? Were they preparing a war in the Middle East, expansion of some kind of war or change in war in the European theater? Is there some war in the Asia Pacific that they're brewing that they want to work on or coordinate? Is it war in Venezuela or South Central America or the Western Hemisphere, South or Central Western Hemisphere, or is it war in the Northern Hemisphere of the Americas? Maybe Pete Hegseth was conferring for U.S. Civil War, like hot Civil War. um, as I pointed out, well, I just woke up and I saw this and I was like, so the U.S. The U.S. just kind of slid into warm civil war. It does kind of look like the U.S. has been in warm civil war because the military has already been deployed without the invocation of the Insurrection Act, which is like the only that I know of. It's like the only like legal method to weaponize or deploy U.S. military forces against American citizens. And that has not been called. They're like Los Angeles, New York City to extent, dozens of other U.S. cities, and Washington, D.C. all have Donald Trump loyal U.S. military forces deployed in them with there's no legal basis for it. He's just doing it. So, I mean, I'm just saying that because that is the case. But this is an escalation. It's a more public, like a lot of that has been under the guise of we just need some support to help enforce the ICE rule. ICE itself is its own paramilitary, if not military organization that is deeply loyal to Trump. Because like the obviously the Trump MAGA forces, a lot of them are based around like making America great again, which equates to removing quote unquote, undocumented people, illegal immigrants, people that are not deemed for whatever reason, people that are not deemed wanted in America being removed, right? That's a lot of the voter base of Donald Trump. And ICE is like its explicit duties are to remove specific individuals for the United States. So there's some of the closest, like most loyal to Donald Trump, right? But around ICE, you also have Army, right, and Marines, and each one of those, it's always a test, right? When the Army, Marines, National Guard are deployed, who will deploy? Like Trump and Hegseth and all of Trump's allies are watching who is deploying, who is resisting, how far is the U.S. military willing to go, which branches, which individuals, which platoons, even which departments, which of the generals, which of the Air Force generals, which of the Army, Navy, Marines, right? It's a kind of this. You can look at what has been happening. This is a intelligence gathering by Trump and anyone around him. Let's put it that way. In an attempt to have a more total seizure of absolute power, for the U.S. to have a neo-feudal absolute monarch, in a silver spooky and neo-feudal sense. But like, I'm not saying that is what's happening. I'm saying, but that, like, if that was what you wanted to do, January 6th was the test, right? Who would be prepared to go through with full seizure of the United States through a coup d'état, right? And there was large groups of people, in not just the people that were on the street, but there's people in the government, in all branches of the U.S. government. Obviously, the Supreme Court is closely aligned with Trump. They're allowing everything that he's doing. The Senate the senators and Congress people, a lot of them, not all of them, many of them are not aligned with what he's going to do or what he's planning to do, or can't be cowed into submission yet. And then various governors and mayors of various cities, because if you actually do want to take over the United States under a single individual ruling everything, whatever you want to call that, or one single individual post-democratic system, or without even the facade of elections, you would need to control the major cities of the United States, or some of them. Let's just say you would need to control the major cities of some of the remains of the disunited states to have a viability. Let's put it that way. So I know I'm laughing, but I know it's not funny, but it's just kind of like, this is like what happens in Terminus Machina and Neofeud. So that's kind of like what is that. Not all of that. I'm not saying all of that is happening right now, but these are all related to this incident. This is not like an isolated incident. Suddenly, Donald Trump is just ordering the U.S. troops into cities. This has been an ongoing process. In the summer of 2020, Donald Trump, remember the Black Lives Matter 30 million plus largest rioting, protests, mass uprising, mass movement after George Floyd's unaliving, for Black lives, against police brutality, police unalivings, police budgets, et cetera, and which, all of that. Remember when that occurred, the Trump's response was to have, troop National Guard and police and military. Trump wanted to have the U.S. military deployed against U.S. citizens, and there were army, like not National Guard, there were army soldiers deployed in some U.S. cities and in D.C. There was a standoff between remember so I can get that. It's hard to find some of this stuff. Not that one. Okay, I'm not gonna remember when we're gonna find it. Remember, there's been several times where this has happened, where Donald Trump has after the election, obviously he questioned the election, right? Who would actually become president? He said Biden was not the legitimate president. Trump, urged people on January 6th to, seize the Capitol. Like this has already happened, right? That was, it did not fully succeed, but that was an attempted coup of the United States. In 2020, during Black Lives Matter, trying to find an article that goes directly to that time. There's this scene where Donald Trump was holding like a giant Bible up. Yeah, the Black Lives Matter mural that's being erased, being painted over. It already has been painted over, I believe, right? I don't want to. Yeah, I want the actual thing. During the Black Lives Matter 2020, in response to violent protest riots and arson, Mayor Bowser announced a citywide curfew, which remained in effect through June 3rd, and additional curfew from 11 to 6 a.m. was added. Law enforcement used tear gas and other riot control tactics to forcefully clear protesters. He held up a Bible and posed for a photo op. Remember this? Yeah, he held up a Bible, posed for a photo op in front of Ashburton House, which had been damaged by a fire during riots the night before. The clearing of demonstrators from Lafayette Square was widely condemned as excessive and affront to First Amendment rights. The National Guard and U.S. Marshals were deployed around the buildings, and then let me see. Yeah. Active duty Army troops were stationed at Andrews Air Force Base. An internal document, Domestic Unrest, Washington, D.C., compiled June 4, 2020 for General Mark Milley and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, reports that 7,600 troops or personnel were deployed in Washington, D.C., or stationed nearby. 2,900 National Guard troops, 500 U.S. Capitol Police, 500 Metropolitan Police, and 500 U.S. Secret Service, 445 Bureau of Prison Staff, 168 U.S. Marshals, 160 DEA, 80 U.S. Park Police, and 32 FBI agents were deployed in Washington, D.C. 1,704 active duty Army troops were stationed at Andrews Air Force. Yeah, so this is just like what I'm trying to point out here is that Donald Trump, this was not. And there were some internal reports where the generals of the United States had to actually order the U.S. military to not go along with what Trump was doing, including comparing Donald Trump, like U.S. generals that were siding with the Democrats and the liberals and basically not fracturing the United States. Because Donald Trump was trying to take over the United States. He's tried to do this at least 4 times, like more overtly or less overtly. The Democrats and the liberals keep giving him free airtime and act like it's totally fine. either because they want him to take over, but not just yet, or they're ignorant or they're liars. That's another important fact. It's kind of like if Donald Trump, because it's like literally he ordered ammunition. He tried to seize the election, right? He tried to seize the Capitol, right? Trump ordered his director, the postmaster, right, of the United States, to destroy mailboxes to stop mail-in ballots, which disproportionately were votes that were not for him. Right? I mean, all of that is obviously criminal and illegal. He's been sued. He's been impeached multiple times. He's been sued and convicted, like as they like to point out, several times. But if that's the case, why doesn't if the United States has a system to correct corruption and injustice and balance power and remove dictatorship and authoritarians and wannabe tyrants, why does the U.S. system and the Democrats keep enabling this? Because they are enabling this. Partially it's because Democrats are not actually in control of anything. It's just it's a global oligarchy that runs through the United States. That's very chaotic. It's a plutocracy of the United States, which is the head of a global imperial capitalist neo-colonial system, and they don't really care about the United States, right? They don't really care about whether if global capitalist profit and oligarch control benefits from America looking like some kind of semblance of a democracy with rule of law, justice, human rights, and freedom, then so be it. If capital can benefit from America being actually, like, I'll never say it's not, for it's always been not a great place for indigenous people of color like myself, colonized people, minorities, etc., and even a lot of the cis white straight guys as well that were not rich. But if America could become completely, mask off without even the pretense, authoritarian, if that benefits capitalism and oligarchy globally, very important. It's not even locally, globally. Then that is what the global oligarchy might choose. I mean, when I say choose, it's not very stable. The oligarchy itself that's behind all the U.S. parties is also very unstable at this moment. That's part of why I called this the state of the disunion. It's not even really the disunion of just the United States as a political entity, as a country ostensibly founded, post around 1776, right? It's also the state of the disunion of like the capitalist system itself, right? Which is moving in all these different directions at the same time. It often is chaotic, but there is often like they have the Davos conferences, they have the big hedge fund meetings, they have the big Bilderberg, and they have their own internal, group chats and their own internal wealthy person discussions that they have to try to decide global coherent imperial capitalist policy, right? What countries what kind of policies we're going to use, what kind of countries we're going to be expanding austerity in, or what countries we're going to be imperializing some more, taking resources from, how we're going to divide the cake up. I mean, this is what they did this before. That's what they did with Africa, where they carved it up in Germany. And that the European countries gathering together, imperial powers, deciding who's going to get Congo, who's going to get South Africa, who's going to get Sahel region, who's going to get, right? They carved out China, like Shanghai goes to France, Hong Kong goes to Britain, right? I mean, just in a historical sense. That was a little more, they have had fights, right? But the global imperial capitalist colonial era domination was a little bit more, they tried to keep the colonial, because that's really where the big money and profit and the control and the global system comes from, is from maintaining that inequity. But it was a little bit more, there was union amongst the monarchies and the aristocracies and the colonial capitalist powers, right? The Hudson's Bay Company and the French companies and ships, right? They were together. They fought sometimes, and they fought over, and they argued and bickered over who got more of what land. But there was more of a union amongst the Europeans during the colonial era, as long as they could have more to plunder, which is that system that evolved into the United States-led capitalist system, right? Anyway, so that's like that. I jumped out a little bit far, maybe for this early in the stream. But coming back to the present, now the global colonial system never collapsed. The colonial system post World War II evolved into the neo-colonial system, right? There is not a precedent for this time, right? You'd have to go all the way back to the collapse of the Roman Empire or something like that, because the Roman Empire collapsed, arguably. Not everything collapsed, but arguably that was a large section. It was about a third of humanity, approximately, or maybe a quarter. But it was definitely North Africa, large quantities of Europe, and West Asia that was being dominated. That structure of plunder and control to benefit a capitalist oligarchy in Rome, in particular, the Caesars and those close to them, the absolute monarch of certain Caesars / the oligarchy, or ruled by a few of those in the good seats in the Colosseum. In those times, right, when that collapsed, that was perhaps comparable, although it's nowhere near the scale, and obviously that was multiple thousands of years ago. So there are many things that are different today, including the existence of advanced computer technology, global integrated economies, various kinds of industrial engines, among other things. There's a lot of differences, but there isn't a precedent of what's happening because, you could argue the Spanish Empire faded, the British Empire, dissolved. This will often be discussed, but like the collapse of the British Empire or the Spanish Empire is not like the Roman Empire, because there was always a global colonial imperial structure, right? When France was kicked out of Vietnam, the United States tried to go back in. Now, Vietnam kicked out the United States shortly thereafter that with the anti-colonial, anti-genocidal, anti-capitalist fight by the Viet Minh and the Vietnamese communists against the American U.S. military invasion, as it stated as General Douglas MacArthur stated, to prevent the spread of communism emanating from the revolutionary hub of Beijing. But even when the U.S. was kicked out of Vietnam, I'm just trying to illustrate that, like, if one colonial power was not as powerful or faded relative to the others in the last 500 years, there was always another to take its place. Right? So when France was kicked out, the U.S. was there. When the Spanish Empire faded, the United States was there to, in the Central South America, just for example, to instate the Monroe Doctrine, right? When the Spanish-American War occurred, and I'm a native Hawaiian, so of course I wasn't very happy in the late 1800s when the U.S. Illegally annexed and fraudulently annexed and illegally militarily occupied Hawaii, and also took many colonies, in the Pacific, and also south of its border. What happened to Puerto Rico, Samoa, Guam. This is not, and obviously the Philippines, right? The Spanish-American War. But when the Philippines, which was colonized by Spain for a long time, when the Spanish were defeated by the United States, the Filipinos weren't liberated. The Filipinos got a new colonizer. You know what I'm saying? They acquired a new imperial suppressor, and that situation, right, where one empire could fade, but another would take its place. And the wealthy of the Spain, right, the wealthy upper classes of Spain did not, they had other places to park their money. Like internally to the Spanish Empire, they lost their personal Spanish claims to a lot of places, right? The British Empire lost claims to some places, like India, obviously, famously in the last century, won. And the British Empire lost a lot of the power and the projection that it had. But when the British Empire faded, the U.S. was always there to... when the British colonialism in India faded, just as an example, the U.S. neo-colonialism took over. That's part of why India has been pushed. It's been caught in a little bit... It's been not caught a little bit. It's been really caught in things like the Quad, which is an imperial attempt to suppress and contain U.S. geopolitical rivals. Obviously, the big 1.4 billion person country very close to India. When these larger states, or when the United States, when the British power faded, in places like in parts of Africa, AFRICOM of the U.S. was there to reestablish itself, right? Or the U.S. power, or French power, or some colonial power. There's always been a colonial capitalist power. If it wasn't inside a country, it was trying to get into that other country everywhere on the earth, and that state, right? So that's like a long way to say that the disunion of a global imperial capitalist structure has never, the whole structure itself, even the idea that capitalism works or can work badly at all, is now like deeply in question, right? Because one aspect of this is there is a superpower, right? That and surrounded by other global South countries that is presenting alternatives to the U.S. led. The U.S. is the capitalist. It is the champion of capitalism. It is a champion of the neocolonialism and imperialism. And there's everybody knows who I'm talking about. That is presenting an alternative that is saying everything doesn't need to be premised upon a tiny minority of people having vast amounts of power and control under systems of various kinds of injustice and inequality globally. We don't need debt traps and plunder. We can have win-win cooperation. We don't need a system based upon some people being better than others, some countries being better than others, racism. We don't need, and that also has an economic component to it, where some labor is worth less than others, like African, Central South American, Asian labor is worth less. Asian, African products are worth less than European products or American products. Like, we don't need that system anymore, right? That's part of the capitalist, as Lenin said, the imperialism, the highest form of capitalism, which is, imperialism is partially based on, right, that racism and that idea of there are different people, there are different races. Some are just more evolved than others. It's, baked into it is the social Darwinism, 1800s racism and eugenics, and all those ideas, right, that they all structurally undergird the U.S. Western-led system, are all massively being questioned right now. I mean, there's a reorientation to BRICS. The BRICS, or however you want to describe the global majority, sometimes the 90% of the population that's not historically colonized or European imperial power, their block is now, right, over 50%. Just BRICS is over 50% of the, particularly in purchasing power parity terms of global economic output. They represent vastly the majority of the world's population, and it's only growing. And the United States, the G7, that bloc, U.S., Canada, Britain, France, et al., the same imperial colonial powers of the last 500 years, they represent a shrinking and the rate at which the U.S., France, Britain, Canada, etc., are shrinking relative to the colonized bloc, right? Those the victims of capitalism and colonialism predominantly. The rate at which France and Britain are shrinking is accelerating, actually, right? They're basically, the countries are in negative growth. Why is the U.S. and France and Britain? I don't know if I talked this on this stream last time, but one of the reasons why this is all happening is because Africa is one of the Africa and the others as well. But Africa right now is going through. I don't have time to cover it on this stream. I've talked about it in some of the other ones. Is going through revolution. Basically, it's going through massive. Continent-wide, particularly in the center of the revolutionary hub, in the MacArthur terms, is radiating from Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, or what is called the AES, the Alliance for Sahel States. But that hurricane of change, and obviously for African peoples and for I would argue humanity in the world, and the idea of whether humanity is net positive or negative, or has the right to exist as a species, it's definitely a positive thing. It's not positive if you are a colonizer, if you're somebody who benefits from extracting wealth from Africa as a whole and their people, right? But like they are building houses and apartment buildings by the thousand and giving them away for free. They are seizing control of their gold, their uranium, their minerals, their agriculture. They're leaping the technological ladder. They're building electric vehicles in Africa that Americans don't even know how to build. That's how fast and how quickly they're leaping within a matter of like a few years. They're building food security. I mean, I'm just gonna say, just you can look up on somewhere like Breakthrough News or somewhere else more facts about that, because it's not what it's about. But so that inability to plunder Africa, and to also an extent the loss of the ability to just simply colonially or neo-colonially plunder Africa, South Central America, and Asia is actually what is really causing this, I would argue. So actually, they are the agents of change. The global majority is the actual agent of change. It's not really anything particularly the U.S. is doing or not doing. That's an important thing. It's not really anything that America or France or Britain or Canada, which is going through massive austerity with the Goldman Sachs president that they have, Goldman Sachs prime minister they have over there. France is every day. It's the rate. It's not just how much, the rate at which it is accumulating debt. The rate that it is going into the red, right? In terms of it can't pay back the debts. It's accumulating more and more debt because it's losing Mali's gold. It's losing Niger's uranium, and every day there's more of it. It's just being repossessed, and they don't want to talk about that, because then if France or Britain or America acknowledge that, well, we are getting poorer and we have less for our countries. I mean, how the country's inequality is distributed is one thing, but for the whole the pie for Western first world countries, colonizer countries like France, Britain, America is rapidly shrinking. And why is it shrinking? Because they are no longer able to steal from Africa and other global South countries. And nobody wants to say that, because if they say that, then that says that all the revolutionary change that's happening in those countries is encouraging others to follow suit, which is what's happening. Namibia, Ghana. I mean, again, I don't have time to go through all of it, but there's a huge list and it's growing. It's only going to accelerate. The dam is already broken on that, which again, this is a very positive. I know this video doesn't look very this thumbnail doesn't look that happy, but this is a very positive thing for the world. It's very positive. I have a friend, our friend Mexi. I don't know if they're going to show up in this stream, but Mexi works on this channel, Positive Leftist News. Very positive leftist news. This is all positive left news. For the world, and eventually things, over time things will work out. During the rebalancing of this great injustice that I've talked about obviously many times on this channel, many others have. Is going to be rough for those particularly who, while they may not have been the biggest benefactors of it, because you could still be poor in America, relatively, being from those countries that have historically benefited from the global injustices, is not going to be a nice ride. And that's part of what's happening with this. Part of the discomfort is going to be things like what is happening vis-a-vis Pete Hegseth being ordered to provide troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and ICE, right? I'm not saying that like that there's like a one-to-one direct correlation, but these are part of the knock-on impacts, right? If America was able to, because America did sustain itself for a long time, like the injustices were there, but America was able, and Europe and Canada were able to keep themselves more or less together, keep the plunder going, and keep the masses, basically in bread and circuses, to use the Roman parlance. I mean, people had enough of the spoils of imperialism in the imperial countries, and there was a way to control that so that there was not enough, so that there wasn't such levels of unrest, right? But because part of this is that, like, it's, if you don't, the capitalists are losing the wealthy, the CEOs, executives, they are losing massive billions or trillions that they used to get based upon the differential or just stolen. Differential of labor cost, the differential, like just as one example, France was paying less than 1% of the rate that you would pay to Canada or a first world country for Niger's uranium. Right? It's very similar. Germany was going to give Bolivia like 3% for every 97% of the revenue from the lithium that Germany. That's not even America. That was Germany. Elon Musk and Germany we're working on a deal, like these gigafactories in Germany are going to produce Teslas in collaboration with Elon, in the United States, obviously benefiting his corporation. When they couped Bolivia in the last decade, they actually tried multiple times, but I mean, long story. What I'm trying to say is that the German and Americans CEOs and German managers, German executives, and German workers, American executives like Elon and some Elon Tesla workers would all benefit from Bolivia being absolutely just like they're just being pilfered, right? Just having their country looted, right? But it would benefit working class and upper class Europeans and Americans, first the colonial powers. Now, the union people working in those companies might still go on strike, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't either, internal to the U.S. and Germany. But the thing that's really causing the problems is that the U.S. is unable to secure the resources that it once was able to. Europeans are unable to secure the resource. That's what they always said. We got to invade this country. We got to secure the resources. We got to get in there. We got to take the oil in Syria, right? As the U.S. General recently said. Peru, Bolivia, Venezuela, these places are so rich in oil and minerals, right? We got to get into the Arctic so we can secure all the diamonds and other precious gems and other natural gas and things that are beneath this Arctic Circle. Now, they can't do that. And actually there's just China just launched its first vessel through an Arctic passage to Europe, cutting the travel time from 50 days to 25, cutting it fully in half. In a route that is actually Frankenstein. The book it partially deals with the Europeans trying to find a way to do this kind of thing. But it was this Arctic passage that it would not be possible till 2035 or 2040. But anyway, that's just one of these. That's one game changer that's happening. Anyway, so that's the global situation. Americans are like, so I don't care about the global situation. I just want to get mine, dude. What the hell is happening right now? But that is kind of like where it's at. Also, what's up, Coral? Coral, if you are the person that emailed me, I did see it. Sorry, I didn't get back yet. I did mean to say something. So I don't always check the chat, but sometimes I do. Also, what's up, Street Cat and Gio and everybody else who stopped by. Okay, anyways, let me come back to the present though, and or the inside the U.S. Then that's kind of what is. I feel like obviously I don't know everything that's going on, but from what I can gather, that's like some of the internal and external factors that's leading to what's happening. Also, when it comes to the AI bubbles, one of the recent things that's happened is, Jensen Huang, who is the CEO of NVIDIA, which is the U.S. The most powerful, or not the most powerful, not the most powerful, definitely not, the highest valued company, right? It has 100 billion open AI to build data centers. But you know what Jensen Huang just came out and said? Jensen Huang just came out and said that China is the world leader in basically all technologies, and to be a China hawk inside the United States, I think he said inside the United States, to be a China hawk looks like a badge of prestige and a badge of strength and smarts and just doing the valiant, right, patriotic, good thing. Outside, it looks like it's a disaster because it's just it's been a total failure. It's going to keep failing. And this is the guy who is at the helm. He's actually Taiwanese. He's actually Taiwanese American that is the CEO of NVIDIA. which is like it is one of the last hopes of capitalism itself, which is that this I'm a science fiction writer, so I guess I'm partially mea culpa. This idea that AI is going to destroy the world / save the world that I've talked about in at least 20 hours worth of Silver Spook YouTube videos, is that is a lot of what is keeping what remains of the capitalist system, certainly the U.S.-led capitalist system and Wall Street afloat, right? Is just this. It's not really anything that they're producing. Even it's just Larry Ellison, which is a close Trump friend, Oracle CEO. Let's get it. Larry Ellison recently, he's buying TikTok. He also owns an entire one of our Hawaiian Islands, Lanai. So not a big fan of this guy. Before it was Dole, the pineapple guy that helped coup. And speaking of coups, coup our country and illegally helped the U.S. Militarily occupy it. So I'm not happy with Dole, the original Sanford, or his brother. I'm not happy with Larry Ellison, who took over for Dole, who is a good friend of Donald Trump. He was also has been trying to buy TikTok for some time. The weird thing is Larry Ellison's Oracle actually took over from the Singapore headquartered, obviously Chinese associated ByteDance TikTok, which is, internally there's Douyin, externally there's TikTok. But Larry Ellison in 2019, Trump threatened a TikTok ban. I don't know if everybody remember this, but there was already, like, over 5 years ago, there was a TikTok ban threat, and ByteDance agreed we would allow the United States to have the data on Americans, like your password, your location, your TikTok details, your TikTok information, your content will be stored in American servers. Larry Ellison benefited from that, and his Oracle technology company benefited that by being the company that was hosting the data of the American TikTok users, right? And they also had some control over what the algorithm would share. That was part of the deal. Not exactly how much and how it works exactly is complicated. But since then, obviously this year there was another TikTok attempts to excoriate and remove TikTok from America. There was a huge outflux to Red Note / Xiaohongshu, the Chinese Communist Party moderated social media platform. TikTok it disappeared from America, was causing errors. It came back obviously earlier this year. There's been all this back and forth when it comes to TikTok. And then after it reopened, TikTok looked a lot more Facebook and Instagramified. If everybody remembers that. So there's been a lot of back and forth when it comes to TikTok and Larry Ellison. But Larry Ellison is, it's $1 trillion. There's a huge amount of U.S. investment. Trump also consolidated a lot of the big tech power. So Peter Thiel of the military, literally named after a Tolkien villain, Saruman's crystal ball, which he watches everything and controls, and it's an agent of Sauron. So I don't know, it's a weird name, but anyway, Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, obviously. Peter Thiel's Palantir, military intelligence, data, mass surveillance software. Elon Musk, X, Twitter, SpaceX, etc. There was Larry Ellison, Oracle, now owns TikTok. Mark Zuckerberg, Instagram, and Facebook, right? So Trump does have the big techs, the FANG, Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google, etc., or kind of like that corpus, that blob of power. The Silicon Valley-based power is now largely in Trump's pocket. Apple CEO Tim Cook knelt on bended knee and offered Trump a golden bar as fealty to his neo-feudal lord. So that's that happened recently. So Tim Cook, most of the major big tech CEOs, that's a big shift of power. The Democrats had a lot of that power at one point. Democrats and liberals big tech in Silicon Valley, California is a blue state. I mean, it was much closer to the Democrats at one point. Like Google, just one example. Larry Page, the former CEO of Google, now he's like in advisory positions in Silicon Valley and at Google, I believe. He became the Democratic President Obama's cabinet member. I believe it was, let me just double check that. Yeah, Larry Page contributed largely to Obama's, sorry, Larry Page, Eric Schmidt, not Larry Page, Eric Schmidt, yeah, that's what it is. He campaigned for Obama, and he subsequently became a member of Obama's cabinet, and he was Obama's President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology. So anyway, what I'm trying to point is that, like, so Eric Schmidt, Mark Zuckerberg was questioned by a lot of Democrats because he was basically, not always siding with Democrats, and they questioned like you're back when a lot of Facebook. Content was sharing Breitbart and Fox at a certain time, especially in the teens, and there's a lot of pro-Trump material on Twitter. Trump was the biggest account on Twitter for a while in the teens, and then the Democrats and the liberals, Hillary Clinton in particular, started to question Facebook and said, "What side are you on?" Right? They were like, you have to. I mean, they didn't say this as publicly, but like, the democracy is in question because you are sending fake news to people. You are sending people to right-wing sources. There was a time for sure. I don't know. I haven't been on Facebook in a while, but there's like an internal survey that showed like you're 10 times more likely to see a right-wing Fox, Breitbart, etc. Conservative outlet in Facebook news feed, and that's like globally as well. Like India, whether you're in India, Brazil, or U.S., that's what was tended to be shared. That was troubling to a lot of Democrats and liberals in particular, who were saying like, well, this is not good for us. If you're going to just only share right-wing media, you have to share others. But so like the big tech titans have always been, they're kind of like the U.S. military-industrial complex, right? They're not necessarily on the Democrat or Republican side, or it's it's kind of like, as I said earlier, it's a bit chaotic. Like where exactly is the sides? Who controls who? It's there's political power in D.C. Like there is power to being the president of the United States. There's also power to being richer than Donald Trump, which Elon Musk is richer than Donald Trump. So there's money power, there's political power. Now to a large extent, the policies the United States has taken, based upon a Gillens and Page study at an Ivy League institution, right, show that like what the rich collectively want in terms of government policy happens like vastly, right, to a large percent of the time. What the masses of the population wants, right, or what the average citizens want, whether they are rich or poor, is basically irrelevant, right? So like less than 3% impact. It's like a rounding error, right? So that's what that's why we call the U.S. a plutocracy, not a democracy. But not all wealthy people have the same interest, right? So if you're a Texas billionaire and you made your money and you're deeply invested in beef and fossil fuel drilling in Texas and I don't know, fracking in Canada or something, and some other places, you don't want green technology. So you don't really want more investment in solar panels. If you're a California multi-billionaire and you have a crap ton of money in pistachios like the Resnicks, but you also fund unaliving children and imperialism in Middle East, right? You own agriculture that uses a vastly underpaid labor to work in these farms, but you're invested in agriculture in California, mostly vegetables and fruits and nuts. You have investments in solar and green tech or some kind of or big tech. You don't want money to go to fossil fuel. You don't want money to go to dairy or beef, right? And it does nothing to do with the morality of eating beef or dairy. It's just like, I'm not invested in it. Republicans are. That team tends to be. and that's not my team, because I'm not going to make money from that, because I don't have stock in a beef corporation. I don't have stock in an oil company, but some people have stock in everything, right? I'm just some of the richest, it's called diversifying your portfolio. So a hedge fund is forced to make sure that everyone is equally complicit in all crimes against humanity under imperial capitalism. So that's where like a lot of the splits right now that are happening in the United States are not necessarily the schisms that exist and do exist. They're like in the population. Obviously, a lot of this is whether you are, if you're a cis white straight male, and you love Charlie Kirk, as we had a video about that. If you're, a liberal, liberal college educated, white lesbian, you like Rachel Maddow, and maybe you like Jimmy Kimmel, and you're like very upset that he got taken off the air. To the elite, to the billionaire class and the corporate class, they don't really, some of them, maybe have some feelings one way or the other. It's interesting. Peter Thiel is actually gay. He's one of the hardest core. He's kind of like, he's almost like he's like a hyper conservative. Like he wants to go back to literal. He doesn't want neofeudalism. Peter Thiel is a pro-monarchist who wants to return to the return of kings based upon his soothsayer Mencius Moldbug, aka Curtis Yarvin of the Tescrial, transhuman extropianism, singularitarianism, et al. Bundle. And he wants to go back to the 1700s, not even go back to the 1950s or the 1850s. Peter Thiel wants no democracy at all. And so he's definitely for Donald Trump. I feel like Peter Thiel is somebody who is happy with Donald Trump. And Palantir, which is about total panopticon surveillance of all people at all times, that's ultimately kind of what their business model is. And working with the U.S. military and U.S. and global governments, law enforcement agencies, FBI et al. To maximize surveillance and weaponize data for maximum control, right? He's like the ultimate security state, not the ultimate, but he's a major security state player, Peter Thiel. And so if you want to have total control of your population at all times and be fully authoritarian, like the Bourbon Kings, but with, fully automated Gatling drones and, like sensors in every single water bottle, and like you can like sense when every female is ovulating, so you can make sure that the certain ones have the proper amount of babies to produce enough of particular stock for your civilization. Peter Thiel is somebody who is definitely an advocate for that, and who would be happy to have maximum the more hard power that comes down in the United States. I mean, it's weird because he's also a gay guy. So it's kind of like, you may not be, when MAGA comes to fruition, you may not be somebody that is allowed to exist, in the United States, But that's the thing, is if you have enough money, fascists who are funded and paid for by liberals, they will always find an exception if you have enough billions. The same is true of Nazi Germany, which had liberal, even Jewish liberals that backed Hitler's policies. And the same is true also in European deeply far-right governments. They have liberal backers at the top. If you're poor and Jewish under Nazi Germany, and that's what the people in the dying settler colony in the Levant region, right, they will say, Hitler would have baked you in an oven. They will say that to other Jewish people because they're like, well, you just had to be richer and more powerful, and you had to be a bigger killer. Your problem was you were just a whiner. That's what they've said this on camera so many times, and it's really gross whenever they do it. But that I guess that is partially the case. And so, anyway, that's kind of off topic. What's up, McLovin, as well? Okay. Anyway, so yeah. So I think that I'm a little bit already spiraled out, but the corporate but I think like what is happening, I'm trying to talk about all these things at once, and I know sometimes it's like it goes in too many directions. But the AI bubble, which I kind of briefly mentioned, is popping. You're probably not gonna see a lot. How to know when it's time to worry about the AI bubble? When CNBC even mentions the word bubble, then that's not good news. When Jim Cramer says it's time to get out of subprime mortgages. You're like about a year late. AI. I just speaking from millennial graduated in '08 experience. AI investment bubble deflated. As a never became Goldman Sachs high frequency trading as a never became Goldman Sachs high frequency trading algorithm programmer, I can attest that if CNBC announces something, you are the last sucker buying that already exploded pump and dump. You are the one being dumped upon. The shell game, Times Square, Central Park shell game player has already fleeced you like a long time ago. Like, not only did you lose the shell game, he already took your house and your car, and like owns like the entire of whatever your mutual aid or your mutual fund or your 401k was worth. So my parents lost like half their entire retirement in 0809, and that's unfortunately that's going to keep happening as the stock market is running out of, so because they're running out of bubbles. That's another problem. Are AI stocks in a bubble? Like when mainstream news is saying this, not just the distributed advanced AI Research Institute and Jaron Lanier and techno skeptics and actual computer scientists who understand that bad malfunctioning software that is just a large model of human language and not the singularity or not Skynet, but good or bad. When those people talk about AI's, a lot of fraud, not worth what they say it is, not doing what they say it is. That is, that's one thing. But now, like, it's actually in the mainstream that AI is it's past its the peak of its so-called hype cycle, and there's nothing to replace AI. That's the problem, right? Like, actually, like one of the reasons why AI even became so big and so widespread, or it became such a big investment lightning rod and like greater attractor, is because there was, you can invest in Elon. Remember, Tesla was like the ultimate stock, right? There's Bitcoin, that's the future, right? There's Tesla, that's the future. It's the Wall Street needs something, and the capitalists. It's not even just like Wall Street. It's not even just like individual like dentists who need to have several $100,000 for retirement. It's not just like billionaires who want to make money. It's not just like millionaire capitalists who want to buy another yacht, or just corporations that have fiduciary responsibility to increase their revenue for their shareholders. The capitalist system as a idea, right? As a system, right? Like it itself is running out of steam, and it needs to perpetuate itself. The capitalist system, the racist system, the colonial structure, like the thing I was just talking about earlier, those are all constructs ultimately in the minds of people that are like deeply problematic, deeply unjust, deeply unstable, right? Capitalism has a crash every 4 to 7 years, as many Marxists like to point out correctly. .com bust was followed by the 0809 global financial crisis, etc. But like they continue to exist because of their momentum, and enough people believe in or buy in enough into those ideas. Like America was the country that did save the capitalist colonial system, right? That was actually unfortunately that was kind of the dark side of what the New Deal and the Roosevelt was about. It was about saving the capitalist and the colonial system, which is all built on together. They all came together and they deeply are entwined. But the belief in the capitalist system is being questioned right now deeply, right? In like a real concrete way, which is like, can the United States, which is the champion of that system and the global enforcer of it worldwide, through U.S. military sanctions, threat of color revolution intervention, starving you to death by cutting off access to food, cutting you off from energy reserves, oil supplies, just militarily bombing you into the Stone Age or getting a vassal to do it. Like that, like the U.S. is the leader And it's the goal was, well, after World War II, let's paint ourselves as good guys and Mickey Mouse. Let's be like the friendly Mickey Mouse and the McDonald's arches, and we'll be the saviors of the world under American, 57 flavors of ketchup and we have the Beatles, rock and roll, Levi jeans, Coca-Cola. Capitalism is innovation. Capitalism is innovation. Capitalism is freedom. American democratic Western liberal order is the end of history, etc. Right? That when having people write articles called "End of History" was trying to solidify that system as the best, what everyone should believe. It's about convincing people to buy into that. Not just Americans, not just Europeans, the whole planet. Africans, Indians, people in the Arab world, we all have to buy that system. Maybe we don't like how America treats us sometimes, but it's still the best. It's flawed, but it is it. That's it. That's all we can aspire to. That is all in the air right now. That's all in there. Hey, what is China doing? China has a communist party. There's socialism with Chinese characteristics. What is that? Multipolarity, like non-single country-led order. We don't all have to be America. We don't all need Levi jeans. We could have like Mixway instead of McDonald's. Did you know that actually a Chinese fast food chain is already supplying McDonald's? We don't need Starbucks. Starbucks is closing in America. The arches are falling down. McDonald's is losing money. I mean, those were symbols of the global American liberal capitalist democratic salvation of capitalist colonialism. Right? McDonald's arch, every country that has a McDonald's arch in it has never been at war with another country, which also wears the badge of the golden American arches. Right? That's all collapsing now, because I'm pretty sure Qatar and Israel, they all have arches in them. You know what I'm saying? They have U.S. bases in them, that's for sure. And then that's already shut down, and now there's a China, India, Pakistan, or China backing Pakistan with the J-10, J-35 backing Saudi Arabia. That is already reoriented. So if the petrodollar, which is based upon controlling global energy supplies to control global economics, through the one of the largest oil producing countries, Saudi Arabia, working with the United States administration, which was right for a lot of the 20th century and 21st century, that was the deal, to control global energy supplies and starve Venezuela and Iran as best as we could, or I should say they could. And if that country, Saudi Arabia, is now saying, well, no, actually, we're going to have to reorient away from the United States and we're going to get military. That's another one of these basket cases, is that there is a dissolution between, that's more what I think the Australia, Britain, Canada, heads of state suddenly saying, we support the two-state solution. We recognize a place we can't talk about because America doesn't have free speech, right? I gotta say Palestine. So there's never been any free speech anywhere in any Western anything. So if you support the why are they doing that? Because the U.S. and its pet settler colonies close relationship is dissolving, just like the Democrat and Republican duopoly is dissolving, and I would say balkanizing. I think I might have pointed this out on Twitch, but there are deeper and deeper lines being cut. The West Coast blue states, Washington, Oregon, California, New York, New Jersey, and that other deep, extremely blue, very wealthy and highly populated, very blue, East, Northeast, and West Coast are balkanizing from Texas, Florida, and the rest of the flyover states. That's happening already. It's already happening. The U.S. military is being deployed against the blue states. Trump is just going to keep pushing the envelope, by the way. It's not going to stop. He's going to keep pushing the envelope. Watch Civil War by Alex Garland. And it's not the best movie ever. And the way he balkanized the United States is weird because he's British and a liberal, but it's relevant. And what's that one? Dave Bautista movie about Civil War. Bushwick, where red, white soldiers from Mississippi, Texas, like sons of our forefathers, Missouri, secessionist forces, or like just Make America Great Again forces all over Michigan, Kristi Noem's people. They all invade Bushwick. They invade New Jersey. They invade New York City. They invade LA. That's already happening. It's just happening slower. In Bushwick, it's all at once. The whole half of the United States invades, the red half of the United States invades and attacks and tries to control all the blue sanctuary cities, all the blue liberal cities, and it's a huge fight. Millions of people die. People are already dying. It's warming up in the United States. It's just slowly warming up. Trump is like, what if we put a little more military on the street? Let's have ICE. Let's have ICE backed by 500 Marines. ICE plus 2,000 Marines and Army. Okay, let's blame Antifa for everything. Let's just say Antifa's here and Antifa's there, and Antifa shot Charlie Kirk. And also, if you are against ICE, you're also Antifa, right? And Antifa, what does that mean? Doesn't matter. You're against fascism. Doesn't matter, right? It doesn't. It's what the liberals are worrying about this, because that was what Trump was trying to do in 2020. The U.S. wasn't cracked enough, and the global imperial capitalist order wasn't cracked enough for that to work. I'm not saying that Bush is going to happen in the United States. I'm saying that Trump is not going to stop pushing at it. Another important factor, Trump just had a phone call. Hey, what's up, Strin Sam and Nora Riot? Good to see you as well. Trump just had a phone call with Xi Jinping. Right? And I brought this up on the Twitch stream. But interestingly, Trump just had a phone call with Xi Jinping. And Xi Jinping said, Donald Trump, he didn't say negative thing, because they're very diplomatic about these things. They don't want China. They're already in a good trajectory. Like their quality of life, they're living basically almost in a Star Trek world. They've got like high speed trains. They've got actual artificial and robot intelligence and robots that's like undesertifying entire thousands of square miles worth of their land and helping them with like food security. Like China has oversupply problems because they're actually using a lot of software and code and robots and technology for positive uses. So they have other problems. They have problems, but they have different problems. They're not really worried about anything except military conflict with the United States or too much chaos caused by the United States. So anyway, long story short, I mean, obviously I'm not the president of China. I'm just saying that there was a call. And Xi Jinping basically said, like, remember when the United States and China fought together in World War II against fascists? And that was an interesting thing. That was one of the readouts from both sides. Which is kind of funny because Trump is against Antifa, which is, right, fighting for fascism, and Xi Jinping is like, I think Xi Jinping is like trying to like gently, because if you feed Trump's ego, right, because he's a very childish, infantile billionaire, and like just he's ego stroke, he's basically a pumped up WWE wrestler, reality TV show host. I mean, not basically, he is that, but he's also the poster boy for American capitalism and the United States. Wall Street, big tech, big money, world. I mean, he shored up. He brought neoliberalism to life. That was his job. So that's what the rest of the oligarchy paid him for. And so Trump is like, but he's simple, And so Xi Jinping just said, like, Trump, you know what? It's kind of like trying to be like, that was America was great, but when it was really great when it was fighting fascism in particular, just like China was. That's the Europeans and a lot of the West has been saying. They've been saying things like, what? China and Russia never ever fought against fascism. What are you even talking about? There's some of these leaders there, and like the Chinese have not been happy about that, because they did lose tens of millions of people fighting against multiple imperialists and Japanese imperial fascism. That what happened in Nanjing, the Grape of Nanjing, the Unit 731. I mean, these things are like real to the Chinese. They're not just real to the Chinese. They're real things, and there's a lot of there's certain global, more like NATO aligned forces that are trying to disrecognize all of that. But Trump is, he is a kind of, he's a for himself, he's not a team imperial player. He's like, I am for me and people who think I'm cool. That's why he liked Kim Jong-un. He was impressed by China, because China has these huge parades. China has, their military parades make American military parades look like a really badly organized marching band in high school. I'm sorry. I know a lot of Westerners who watch YouTube a lot. Maybe they're in here like, seriously, what are you even talking about? They're not looking at the global stage that much, but I mean, they have their military. They just released a new aircraft carrier that basically makes American aircraft carriers obsolete. That can launch, can catapult. With actual functional, basically like railgun, electronic, electrical propulsion as opposed to steam-based propulsion. They can catapult the J-10 and the J-35, the latest gen, bleeding edge gen stealth fighter. That the U.S. just can't match it. Donald Trump actually said, we don't need any more of those electronic catapults. Just get the steam ones or whatever. Even though actually the electronic ones are way faster and more efficient for scrambling. Anyway, so long story short is Trump is like, he knows that Xi Jinping, Kim Jong-un, Vladimir Putin, like they are respected in their countries. They are, they have huge parades. They have huge, amazing brand new buildings in their cities. China is dwarfing the United States in every domain. The class of their cities, their technology, in all quadrants, their global leadership, but the thing is, Trump, I think, thinks that China got there in the way that the Western media through, as I pointed out, Douglas MacArthur said, we have to fight the revolutionary scourge to the American CIA, to the Dr. Strangeloves of 1950s America, who were the takeovers again of the colonial capitalist powers of Britain, France, et al., right? Who fought, who, as Europe was in flames post World War II, they relocated their power center more deeply into Washington D.C. in the last first world colonizer country that was left standing, the United States. But their goal was to stop the spread of communism and stop the spread of decolonization, to maintain that order, right? And to do that, they also said everything that happened in China is because of authoritarianism. Everywhere where there's any kind of thing that looks a little bit like communism, nobody can learn what that really means in the West and in America. But in China, all the power is headquartered in a dictator, a communist dictator, based upon tyranny and controlling what everyone thinks. Anyone who steps out of line, they get beaten by Chinese police. The military will shoot you for criticizing the CCP, CPC. But anyway, so I'm not saying that. I'm going to say that is what the United States and the collective West has had to project about China, and obviously Soviet Union, and now especially China, right? The Democrats are calling Trump a communist, and the Republicans and Trump are calling the Democrats communist, right? The U.S. politics and Western politics is both parties, right? Liberals and conservatives calling each other communists. That's basically it, right? Like, neither side understanding what communism is. But anyway, so Trump believes, I think a lot of what's happening, this attempts to consolidate power, is actually when, coming back to that Charlie Kirk, right? When Trump, like this actually ties the last three videos together, right? I made a video called Kirktopia, where after the shooting of Charlie Kirk, or unaliving of Charlie Kirk, a couple weeks ago, was this huge backlash and also attempt to consolidate power under forced grieving for a self-proclaimed, supremacist, extreme right-winger, someone who, we've talked about this in this video, but it was an opportunity, right, to kind of shore up Americanism, to make, the American, conservative, white right-wing, the victims to get support, right, and to kind of force even black, liberal, Democrat, and a lot of them have caught out, even Jimmy Kimmel, right, who was taken off air ostensibly for sometimes it's questionable things that Kimmel said about Charlie Kirk, or incorrectly speaking about Charlie Kirk. A lot of it actually had to do with Kimmel insulting Donald Trump. And as I pointed out last week, right, Jimmy Kimmel didn't even say anything particularly incorrect about Donald Trump. Like the things, I went and looked it up, and what Kimmel said was not like factually false. It wasn't nice to Donald Trump. It made him look really like nonchalant and really like aloof and really like, I don't care about Charlie Kirk. Because when Kimmel was taken off air last week, it was because Trump was being asked about Charlie Kirk, and Trump basically said, you know what, I'm fine. I don't, he just kind of like jumped. He dismissed the questions about, aren't you sad for your friend Charlie Kirk? And Trump said, I think I'm doing very fine. But what was Trump doing there, right? What was Trump? Trump was trying to move the conversation towards, look at this brand new ballroom I'm working on at the White House. It's a $200 million beautiful ballroom. But remember, what did he say? He said, because, like when people come to America, when leaders come to America, he said, Trump multiple times in that same sentence, he said, Xi Jinping, when Xi Jinping comes to America, he has to stand outside in this lawn, in the rain if it's raining. It's not a great situation. Trump he's a real estate guy because he's a reality TV show host. He's he's a selfish, pompous dick. He's he's all American. He's he's a reality TV guy. He's a real estate, right? So he like big celebrations, right? Big events, big openings, right? Look at this great new condominium. Look at that. Look at this brand new fondness we got. That's what he's been about for a lot of his life. It's what his dad, Fred Trump, was about as well. And so Trump is like we don't have a lot of big, showy, really cool buildings and parades. That's why he wanted a parade, but the parade that he got obviously was not up to the scale of some of the East Asian countries' parades that he looks up to. Remember, he does look up to those other countries. I know it's kind of a weird thing to think about because obviously a lot of his ideology and a lot of his MAGA forces are like the opposite of communist, not even white. A lot of the countries and the people that are from these places that Donald Trump looks up to, the leaders, like deeply disagree with like far right MAGA politics, obviously. But when coming back to my point, Trump was trying to shift the conversation away from Charlie Kirk towards talking about we can impress Xi Jinping. We can impress Xi Jinping when he comes to America with this new ballroom. And I think in part it's because Trump looks at it, he sees it as, I need to become like Xi Jinping. And from Americans' capitalist, imperialist propaganda, that we're all drenched in nonstop, whether we're watching Stranger Things Season 3, where Russians are invading America, by burying underneath our Baskin-Robbins, whether it's the Democrats criticizing everyone for being communist dictators in the Republican Party, or Republicans criticizing Democrats for all being communist dictators and it happens everywhere. In Canada, I've seen they accuse Justin Trudeau of being like a CCP shill. He's just trying to turn Canada communist. It's right. We all know we're around that kind of stuff. Whether we know what the world is like and what communism is or not, we are surrounded by that kind of stuff. Trump is too. He's a simple guy. He's just like, if communism is when you just crack down, right? Communism is when you crack down on all dissent. You don't respond to the people's needs. You just use an iron fist, right? And you just liberals are guilty of this. So Trump is going, if I want to be like Xi Jinping, I have to do what America says Xi Jinping is. I have to crush the dissent. I have to crush Jimmy Kimmel. I have to crush the Democrats. I have to consolidate the power. Now, obviously, in China, a lot of it has to do with meeting people's needs, alleviating 1.4 billion people's extreme poverty, wages quadrupling over a matter of decades, and having just world record successes and having a 96% approval rating of the government, as admitted by Harvard. So the global oligarchy elites know that it's not because Xi Jinping beat everyone up and said, you have to like me. But Trump thinks, because of Western propaganda, that Xi Jinping got where he is by beating everyone up, with half the country being police. Trump is trying to build what liberals say China is. Let me say that again. Trump is trying to build what liberals and conservatives say China is, but especially liberals, right? Because conservatives are, authoritarianism is not too bad, as long as the white male, cis, conservative power, Christian power is on top. But the liberals are really we got to resist authoritarianism. We have to resist, look at China, it's authoritarian. Trump is but China has really awesome towers, man. Did you see these? The tower, China has cities that light the whole city is Blade Runner looks like the Blade Runner cities are backwards little podunks, man. They're that's a little bucolic tower. It looks like nothing. China, the whole city is a giant screen. You got million drone shows. Trump is okay, wait. So if we have to become an authoritarian dictatorship so we could have amazing cities and clean streets and people loving their country and looking up to the leader, all right, then let's go. I'm not happy about that. I'm laughing because it's ridiculous, right? It's ridiculous. But so Jimmy Kimmel smack. Now obviously Jimmy Kimmel has got back on air. Charlie Kirk, I don't know. They're still trying to consolidate power around making the day of mourning for Charlie Kirk and building America around celebrating a man who said slavery was good. I mean, this is really sick. I'm not laughing because I'm happy about this. I'm just it's just it is just it's a silver spook world. I'm sorry. I just write the stylized journalism with sci-fi characteristics. I don't I am not actually creating the world as you speak. I am not like the literal puppet master. I'm not the architect in the Matrix Reloaded. So, anyways, but yeah, Charlie Kirk's. But like the consolidation of power around Charlie Kirk, you can almost see it as a reflection of Western liberal capitalist projection of anti-communism, right? That is what Trump is trying to build. He's saying, "Oh man, I got all these really great ideas." Trump doesn't respect weakness; he respects strength. That's true, right? Who is strong, right? Not Western countries. He doesn't respect the European leaders. Like you can see that he doesn't respect the Canadian leaders. He doesn't see, because they don't like you. Just if I push you, Canada just said, please Trump. Like Canada was talking about, we're gonna elbows up and Canada is gonna resist the fascist American attempts. Canada will fight to the last. Canada just said, oh, we're so sorry, Donald Trump. We're so sorry, America. Please take the tariffs down and please just spare us. So, and I mean, in all honesty, Canada and European, these are colonial powers. These are has-been colonial powers. They're all parts. They're satellites. They all rely on the U.S. imperial structure. Canada is getting poorer because Barrick Gold can't steal Mali, Africa's gold, because they have a revolution there that's kicking out all Western gold companies, resource companies. And that's why Canada's getting poorer. It's not because Mark Carney did or didn't do that thing. I mean, he's doing not the smartest things, but he is a made man, multiple time serial central banker for the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England. So, he's a Goldman. He is what Matt Taibbi once called, before he became more not great, a Goldman Sachs vampire squid. But like it's not anything Canada or France or Britain or the US are doing that is actually making their situation markedly worse. It's actually their defeat by the global South as imperial capitalists to extract from the global South, right? And Canada cannot be strong to the United States because Canada relies on the United States to exert global power through imperialism, sanctions, wars, coups, etc. Britain and France and Europe, they can't be strong against the United States because they rely on the US's continued maintenance of the global imperial system, right? That's why so many people, they all, when Trump comes over, they call him daddy over there in Europe. It's Trump is like, I mean, thanks a lot, but I mean, you that's it's kind of like what Xi Jinping says. It's so great that the U.S. and China fought together in fascism, but they try to also said Donald Trump, the United States administration, when you say something, you need to follow through and do that thing. That was another, like he actually did take us there was some like tough talk, right? And also Donald Trump knows that China is not just going to talk, right? He tried to tariff war and China said no, and Trump said, I'm waiting for the call, and Xi Jinping said, I'm not talking to you, and Scott Bessent had to chase down the Chinese official in Europe to beg to the Trump administration. Right? Bessent is like a Soros buddy. He was the one who tried to he successfully destroyed multiple economies and made mountains of money tanking currencies like British pound, Southeast Asian countries' currencies. Failed in Hong Kong because of the Communist Party of China. That's why Scott Bessent has a bone to pick with China itself. But China. Bessent had to beg China to please let some of their ships through because the U.S. would absolutely dissolve and it would collapse faster than expected. It's already collapsing, but it collapsed faster than expected without that. So what I'm trying to say is that that's so Trump respects it. Trump does not respect the European or the Canadian or any of these Western leaders. These are they're all pushovers, right? He's like, also their cities are not looking too good. Trump just went to Britain and the cities are not looking good. Why are the cities not looking good? And stage capitalism is devouring itself. I mean, in Britain as well. People, the malnourishment rate of children in Britain is abominable. It's like people can't get a lot of fresh vegetables on a regular basis. I mean, it's in some ways it's worse than the United States, and everybody just has to keep calm and put your British smile on and carry on. It's quite sad, but the British Empire did hurt a lot of people for 500 years. So what I'm not saying that everybody in Britain deserves that, but this has been a long time coming, and in a sense, it's going to be sad. Sorry, I'm leaving Charlie Kirk up. again, it's going to be it's going to be hard for a lot of people in the United States, but globally, this is going to be one of the best things ever, because the whole world will be, the whole global system is shifting, for the better. Locally, if you're in the global minority of wealthy first world, historically white Western European countries and settler colonies, like the U.S., Britain, etc., it's going to feel chaotic. It's going to feel like not great. A lot of things are going to change, but chemotherapy is not fun. You lose your hair, you're in pain a lot, you can't sleep a lot. The cancer, if it succeeds, the chemotherapy can get rid of the cancer. You know what I mean? But chemotherapy does not feel good. It's embarrassing. It's kind of like, this is the chemotherapy. It's embarrassing. You're going to look like a giant basket case. U.S. has always really been one, but it really is looking like it. You know what I'm saying? When you're just you have one party sending the military in to beat up on people of color in the other city. You got like blue states all trying to break off. The other one is, I didn't bring it up on YouTube, so I'll bring it up now. The Northeast Health Alliance. We're going to talk about health. RFK, in response to the Donald Trump changes and the Donald Trump administration and RFK's statements that, it's like Tylenol causes autism. Number one, Tylenol, like there's no actual scientific evidence for that. Okay, that's number one. Number two, it's like the demonization of people with autism or people that are on the autistic spectrum, etc. That's embarrassing as well. To have your president, your current president of the United States and his government is actively saying absolute nonsense, right? It was, of course, it's 2016 to 2020. Of course, that was also embarrassing. It's getting more embarrassing as things really start to fray and rip apart. Northeast U.S. Another example of this is that the blue states, right? As I said, like, it's not really a moral thing, I don't think, but it's just the democratic states, Canada, Canada, the 51st state. Who are we kidding? You already are the 51st state. That's why you got to go beg Trump to to please trade with me again. California, Canada is a settler colonial. They're guilty of the crushing of indigenous people in their territory, with almost 200 line items that the UN has issued them that the Canada has not remedied or rectified in the last many years. So they have this. Doesn't matter how nice and how much sorry they say, they have all this guilt on their hands as well. So anyways, but California, Oregon, Washington, New York, and all these blue states. There's also there's a Northeast, and then there's also a West Coast Health Alliance, because the U.S. federal government has said that we are not going to have vaccines, or we're gonna change the whole schedule, not just for the COVID vaccines, but also for vaccines when it comes to measles, mumps, rubella, chicken pox. It's at all the schedule of immunizations that children get, right, from birth, 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years, and they're going to pull back a whole bunch of these vaccines. They're even pulling back Tylenol. That's another test, right? Why is this happening? Again, follow the money. The blue states, California, Washington, Oregon, right? Massively diverse. There's a lot of women, people of color, immigrants, H-1B visa immigrants. 70% of H-1B visa immigrants. That was also tested recently, right? That was a big move. $100,000 cost was going to be applied to all H-1B visa immigrants. Who needs those? H-1B visa immigrants. Those are predominantly for blue states that need educated, university educated, biotech, right? If you want to if you want to rearrange the molecules in deoxyribonucleic acid, right? And you want to make a new kind of cure, or they don't make cures, they make treatments that cost billions of dollars for profit. If you want to make a treatment, right, for a cancer, if you want to make a vaccine for a new strain, like an Omicron Epsilon Kraken variant of something, if you want to make new medical equipment, like that takes a lot of highly college educated people who in these diverse cities primarily, where that you can do this kind of research. It's not done in farms in Mississippi, okay? Like high-tech biomed research is not done in Texas cattle land, okay? So you're disproportionately hampering and crushing, trying to attack the democratic power base, which is biotech, finance tech, where it's all in these mega cities. It was a lot of it was in the big tech Silicon Valley, but that's actually pivoted towards Trump. So that was actually a big, huge consolidation of power with getting all of the biggest tech conglomerates and tech giants to turncoat onto the Trump side. But yeah, so if you don't have, what do you have? You have biotech, you have some agriculture, right? What does California have? What does New York have? You have fintech, Wall Street, right? Making giant loans, mega auto loans, car loans, house loans, credit card loans, Klarna, taco mortgages. You gotta go, sell your kidney to get a loan. You gotta sell your kidney as collateral for a loan to buy a pizza through these kind of like micro loaning. I'm being a little bit facetious there, but you know what I'm saying. But it all has to do with finance, fintech, insurance. There's Hollywood, right? That's an attack on Jimmy Kimmel. So the Trump is systematically attacking health with the H-1B visas by rolling back the vaccines, testing the waters by trying to roll back Tylenol. Just what kind of medicines can we just rip out of the Democrat and liberals' hands that gives them money and power? Can we change the schedules? Let's rip away their H-1B visas that have all these high-tech underpaid workers that actually invent all their cures. 70% from India. Let's rip out, it's not good for the United States, but internal to the U.S. Civil War, cold warm civil war, that does benefit Donald Trump, and it does benefit his MAGA side, and Kristi Noem, etc., and RFK, right? And then the fintech, Trump has talked about, we're going to try to seize Jerome Powell. We got to figure out what we're going to do about a lot of these big bankers in New York. I got to get the ones closest to me I got to get as many of those, because a lot of the New Yorkers are really, they don't really like Trump, right? Jamie Dimon and the CEOs of Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and a lot of these people, they've been closer to the Democrat. They're not really on one side or the other, but they've always looked down at Trump in New York. And so he's been eyeing New York. He loves New York. He is a New Yorker, but he has a bone to pick with a lot of the elites of New York, and it's a deep blue Democratic region. He needs to get that all consolidated. With military means or otherwise. You know what I mean? If you want to take over the United States if you want to become what Richard Nixon and the Richard Nixon and the CIA said China was, and what the liberals are saying China is, you're going to have, right? Not what it is, but what they say it is. You're going to have to take down New York, take down LA, take down Seattle, completely control militarily or economically or otherwise, just obliterate their economics, right? This is actually what happened in the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln didn't create emancipate the slaves because of his love of black people and his lack of racism. He was actually extremely racist, and he wanted to sell black people back to Africa to make a big profit, right? And that wanted to do with economics of the North versus South. Of the North, which is more industrialized, it didn't rely as much on black labor. The South really did. Black slave labor was what economically powered its agricultural industries. By emancipating the slaves, that was about gutting the economic basis of the South, which would power the logistics and the supply, which is how actual wars are always won, not by Hollywood movie Saving Ryan's Privates nonsense, right? It's like actually, not because one side is just way more moral than the other side. Obviously having the actual just cause on your side, it helps, but logistics and actually having the manpower and the people power, and otherwise a lot of the GENOC IDEs wouldn't have happened in the past if it was morally correct, then a lot of things happening in the Middle East wouldn't be happening right now, right? But if you don't have the logistics, you don't have the economic structure to the production, right, the industrial capacity, right? That's what the US and NATO are facing vis-a-vis Russia, right? Whatever you think about those sides of that war, one side is outproducing the other. You can see if you can figure out which one it is, and that's why they're really struggling. And they're talking about what they're going to do to deal with that. A lot of people are in denial about that still. But my point is that Trump is trying to deindustrialize the democratic states the way that the unions under Abraham Lincoln and the North and Ulysses S. Grant, General, were trying to deindustrialize and weaken economically the South through the emancipation of slavery. So Trump is emancipating the Indians of their fraudulent American dream, right? That's what the Indians on Reddit were saying this week. I'm going to commit suicide because if I have to go back to India, where I'm going to live a horribly more impoverished life. I mean, India's got to be pretty bad if people don't want to go back to India from America, because America sucks. But Indians by the thousand were going on Reddit saying, I'm going to kill myself because I can't go back to India and this H-1B visa. I can't afford $100,000 either. So this is a nightmare, right? So, but Trump is trying to alleviate, he's emancipating the Indians from their dream of becoming America. And Indians might go back to India and like undo the injustices and the colonial comprador powers and the capitalist forces that and the Hindutva and the residual caste system and the tax on women in India to make India actually, closer to what China is. Maybe I'm not saying that is what's going to happen. I'm saying that the goal is not necessarily. I don't think Trump's goal is necessarily to just like get rid of everybody who isn't white, but there's a lot of his supporters want that. It's not even that like he's anti-Indian, but he's not like the people who work for the liberals that definitely have it in for me, that I am in a cold/warm civil war with, as I'm deploying against Gavin Newsom's orders, hundreds of U.S. military forces into L.A., into Californian cities. Gavin Newsom has lost, by the way. The U.S. military on Donald Trump's side is all over California. It's all over New York and other blue states. So like that, but it's slowly encroaching. It's not like it's not like 1,400,000 American forces are just invading, right, on the line, just like running into California, flying. They're not copters and tanks just ramming into California. This is how the U.S. invades other countries, right? America is having the Iraqi experience, not quite, but it's more. That's way worse. But America is having a taste of the U.S. imperialism experience. The blue states are slowly having a military buildup. That's what we had in Hawaii. Just a little base here. You put a little aircraft carrier there. You put a little. You have Dillingham dredge a little Waikiki there. Destroy the breadbasket of Hawaii. So we can't be independent socialist. Hawaii-led, Kuleana Pono-based sovereign country with a universal healthcare system and the world-class literacy rates like we were in the 1800s. But slowly you build up the U.S. military, right? So if any Hawaiians try to fight the fraudulent annexation, right, then, there's a warship here. There's 600 military there. You don't want to think about it, right? So Trump is doing colonialism to the liberals, but the light version is not even very intense yet. But it's gonna keep building because Trump, he has to. How is Trump gonna have a fun time with Xi Jinping at the Olympic ball, at this massive ballroom, the White House glorious ballroom with 25 golden gilded, Ivankas and naked angels and like a giant Tylenol pill that ripped Tylenol, right? I gotta have a 600-foot tall Tylenol pill to commemorate the day that we destroyed Tylenol by making it illegal to take because it causes kids to be smart. Autistic. I don't know. I don't know. That RFK guy told me. So here's a giant Tylenol statue and it has a big X through it. Xi Jinping. Right, so that's going to be the Trump. But in order to have that Trump-Xi Jinping meeting, Trump needs to have authoritarian CCP powers, but it has to be like the ACP. Trump needs to become the American Communist Party, and by that I mean like the CIA, the Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged, motion picture screen guide for the preservation of American values, instilled version of what communism is, which you can see in Red Dawn, the 1980s anti-communist book, starring the Patrick Swayze and other lead stars and big names, Charlie Sheen. Donald Trump needs to become the Red Dawn authoritarian regime that America is meant to be. I'm laughing because it's ludicrous, but that's It is. That's what the West. That's what the U.S. is. Okay. Let me get back on the track and off of the comedy routine and wrap this up soon. The says the global outrage is based on the play. Sorry, I'm just looking at some of the chat refresh. On the Twitch stream, I'm more active in the chat. So, but anyways, because I'm trying to keep this more tight and just wrap it up. So long story short, so that's all very chaotic and it's there's a lot of weird stuff going on, but there's definitely an attempt to consolidate power. Some of this, it might calm down a bit more, it might speed up a bit more. What's not gonna slow down is the global reorientation. I don't see that slowing down. Barring some like, if the United States, like, I joke at this in Neofeud, my video game, right? In Neofeud, there's a part of Neofeud, which is it's about a Western imperial capitalist system deteriorating into Peter Thiel's dream, right? Which is a return of kings, under part of the Neofeud world. Neofeud is actually a sequel to Terminus Machina, which is it's just in situ a collapse, in situ apocalypse of the United States, where a homeless socialist activist revolutionary, his name is Silver Spook in this game, has to has to jailbreak iPhone factory, making worker slaves while dodging like militarized police, AI automated drone strikes, and death squads of robotic troops just marching around, beating up anybody who logs into Facebook and says anything left of Joe Biden, or anything left of Donald Trump, but not at this point. And so, and Terminus Machina like devolves into this world, ultimately into the world of Neofeud, in which there is no even question of whether U.S. is a democracy or not. It's like it's just everything has collapsed. There's no environment. There's just an endless landfill / slum earth, and then the rich live in floating palaces above that wasteland. And the elites, they don't pretend like they're justly chosen by the people anymore. France hasn't had an election way past its time. The last two have been rigged. Like, they actually voted for one party or the other. And when it was the left party, it was just the French oligarchy just chose the correct party for France. Ukraine hasn't had an actual election in over a year for its the president or their Congress. Several European countries haven't had any elections, like real legitimate elections. I would argue that any capitalist system that has corruption within the political structure based upon money buying policy, that's not really, can't be said to be democratic. It's plutocratic. But even the facade of the democracy is falling away in many, many Western countries. And so, so in that sense, the neo-feudal world is already definitely close to arriving. But one of the things that actually saves, one of the things that stops the complete systemic change of the capitalist structure, capitalist settler colonial structure of the United States and the global order, is that King Warren Clinton Bush, who is a fusion of he's a fusion of the Democrat and Republican parties. This is one thing that can happen as well. As the Democrats and the liberals and the conservatives, as they did in Nazi Germany, they did fuse into one party. Ultimately, they all kowtowed onto the Reich, right? So the liberals may be forced into a position if they're outmaneuvered by Trump. I'm not particularly of the liberal. I am not a liberal myself. I don't believe in a capitalist system or structure. I'm also a Native Hawaiian, so look that up at what Native Hawaiians think about Americans. Ask Hana Nike Trask what she thought. But like, the liberals may be forced into a position where they don't have an out except to bend the knee to their king, Trump. Like, that is fully possible. And in order to maintain power, the king / CEO Warren Clinton Bush in this world, right, in which all of the facade of U.S. democracy and human rights and freedom and all these nonsenses that they say, but they don't actually believe in, they don't enact on, definitely not in their settler colony in West Asia, that starts with the letter P, and definitely not in Africa, definitely not in Central South America during all their color revolutions and bloody installed dictatorships, and definitely not in Asia, where they try to make constant multi-million person killing wars and enforce their will and try to build military bases all over South Korea. That's what it is. The liberals are going to get the South Korean experience. You get to have a bunch of military buildup, and you get to feel what it's like to, just be constantly threatened with your autonomy more and more eroded. And, LA, you can feel a little bit more like Seoul, which is surrounded by U.S. military bases, by the way, and military threats. And it's not independent. It's actually what Squid Game is about, but Westerners don't know that because, anyway. So it's just about what the rich people are mean. No. Every single game actually refers to like specific massacres that have happened under U.S. imperialism in Korea. Actually, is it? But you don't. It's totally just like Lost, and then they turned it into some kind of like death race game show game or something. But like for real in the next seasons of the Squid Games. Anyways, that is a sorry state of the United States. It's another symbol of it. Anyway. So the way that the United States, as it implodes in a smash crash, because this is another fact that's on the ground, the global gold reserves, when there's a global realignment, right, there's actually a move towards, as economic systems lose the stability, right? I'm trying to find one of those. Not that one. The one on gold, I think it was a Kathleen. Sorry, I'm trying to find a specific update. And they stop and look closely at what everything says before I forget. Oh, I got so many bookmarks. I forgot how many I have. Yeah, so like when a country needs to reorient, or when the global system needs to reorient, or is going through a chaotic time, which it is, right? Wow. There needs to be a stable currency or stable resource, a stable place for people to put money, and then to discuss and create the new system of the future. Sorry, I just gotta look for it. Let me just find this. This is the account that had this important information I'm looking for. Yeah, not that one. The one on gold. Okay, is this it? No. Shoot. Okay, I'm not gonna be able to find it. The update I was looking was at there's okay, actually no, that's Reuters, not gonna give me what I want. Well, long story short, the global gold realignment, right? So there's actually tons and tons and tons of gold in Southeast Asia is now moving into China. There's massive amounts of China is actually encouraging as many countries, even European countries, to headquarter their gold, buy gold, put their physical gold into China, or wherever. If you're going to have gold, store it in China, because they're not even saying it, but it's implied. The United States and Britain are not safe places to have the gold reserves that are there as part of the global reorientation. Like for example, in the Great Depression, the U.S. seized American citizens' gold. In the great economic collapses in the 20th century, the price of gold goes up because of the instability. And historically, over millennia, gold has been a place, along with precious metals like silver, where the people who are not sure where to put them, like I can invest it in real estate, but what if the price of real estate goes down? What if I could put it into this company or that company? What if that company collapses because all of the economy is exploding? I could put it into this country or that country, because on a global capitalist can look at the world. But if the whole planet is in economic upheaval, where do you put the money, right? I mean, I'm looking at it from an investor perspective, from just a millionaire, billionaire, corporate, or even just like some random, middle-class person somewhere on the earth. Where am I going to put the money? Institutional investors have, and governments too, also have to think about this. They'll have to think about how are we going to preserve the value that we have without losing inordinate amounts as everyone is losing. In the 2008 global financial crisis, the price of gold skyrocketed. In the 80s, when there's a lot of economic upheaval, the price of gold and silver went up, right? In the early 20th century, this also happened. When there is a lot of turmoil, especially around World War II, or in the great and economic and or military confrontations, this tends to happen because there's instability in the world, right? And so, the problem is, one of the things that happened around the mid 20th century is that countries started to headquarter their gold into the United States, Britain to an extent, Bank of England. But the United States is where a lot of gold was headquartered, right? And for various reasons, a lot of the countries were in ruin, and the U.S. encouraged this. It also gave the U.S. a lot of leverage over all the other countries, right? Like we have physically control where the solid, hard, real assets, right? 'Cause that's what gold is. It's like it's I don't want to get into the theory of value and that kind of stuff, but basically, it's needed because it does, like, you cannot manufacture it, you cannot print it, right? Like, you can print. You can technically crypto coins is an interesting new technology, Bitcoins, but like you can print fiat money, you can print paper dollars, you can print francs, you can print British paper pounds. You can't print gold, you can't print silver, right? Not yet. If you can print gold, that will change. There's a machine invented by China or someone else that can actually manufacture gold, like actual alchemy. That would change that game, but that has not yet materialized. There are machines that you can use to manufacture diamond. The Chinese use that. De Beers and the European colonizers who made their trillions on blood minerals oppressing Africa, like blood diamonds, they're not happy about that. But that is the case. You can actually manufacture diamond. Now they have, here's a certificate. African children actually mined under a European leader under horrible conditions, and that's why this diamond that you get married with is worth more. Happy De Beers day to you. I don't know. Like it's kind of like weird, right? It's kind of like, I want to know. There's like a deep racism in that. Even though we can have cheap, affordable, just really inexpensive, lab-grown, ethical diamonds. I want a certificate that says that Black people suffered monumentally to get this rock that unites two Europeans together. It's kind of sick. It's really, because that is still a business in that. Like, I just want to know that I'm doing colonialism and racism. It's like a colonialism racism markup. Like this harmed people with extra melanin in their body, and just like knowing that, right, allows you to take pride in your jewelry. It's a weird industry. Obviously, putting it weird is putting it lightly. But long story short, so there is no ability to manufacture gold. So if you with so when the Bretton Woods system was developed, as an example, right, it was realigned, and a lot of the balancing was when things were in a lot of flux because it was unsure what the new system was going to look like. The Bretton Woods system was what emerged with the U.S. with the maximum power under that structure. Part of that was a lot of European countries headquartering their gold inside the United States. A lot of European countries' constitutions and their governments basically rewritten by the United States. A lot of European countries under the European Union basically vassalized economically and otherwise under the United States. NATO, a tool to contain the spread of communism and also to maintain the control of the European countries, military and otherwise, by ensuring that, well, you don't have to worry about anything. All we have to do is Uncle Sam and his giant military industrial complex will support whatever your defense needs are until a raging bull in the anti-China shop. The Trump shows up and is just like, give me money. I don't care about what this is NATO. I don't know. You don't like me. I don't like you either. Give me money. I'm gonna rip up all of your playbooks, and I'm gonna ban Tylenol because it's gonna screw over some liberal yoga people. Freaking, I'm gonna screw over Gavin Newsom. I just don't like him. I'll ban European products. I'll tariff you to 6 million %. What do you think about that? So you see, but Trump is ripping up that Bretton Woods established order. That was the imperial global order with orderly solidarity of, as Martin Luther King would say, it was a unjust peace. Unjust peace for, it was it's like there would be violence to build justice, right, in a world of systemic injustice, but there was peace between Europe and the United States, U.S., Britain, U.S., France, right, and all these other countries in order to then maintain the global imperial order. And part of the creation of that order was who had the gold, where the gold was, to establish what the next which everybody had dove into in order to preserve their own value, and to decide, what exactly, how much is this currency going to be valued against that? How much of these debts can be paid down? How much, what level of power, economic power, will each of these players have, right? China has accumulated, right? On paper, it's like several thousand, but some people estimate it could be 20,000 tons plus of gold. They don't know. Nobody actually knows. The same thing for China, Russia, and a lot of the other global South nations. China is encouraging the entire planet. And the Chinese gold reserves have multiplied massively in just in the last year. and not just Chinese gold, but gold. Europeans are, some of them are storing gold in China. Countries from around the world, they're saying, well, the U.S. is not a safe place. The United States just tariffed this entire planet. The U.S. basically put a gun to everyone else. Europeans' head, Canada's head, Mexico's head. They said, we're going to take you and make you a 51st state. The U.S. went to Mexico and said, we're going to invade you. We're going to seize Panama. We're going to take Greenland and make it part of the U.S. territory. And everyone, you're all paying, you're going to pay 100%, 30%. Vietnam, you're paying some ridiculous percent. The Penguins, everyone, you're all paying me money now, right? Because the United States, we're done pretending like we care about you. We're done pretending like we're some kind of just order. It's the gangster disorder now. Give me personally your money. Give me $5 million and you get a gold trump card, right? Now that is like, I'm not saying that's good, but as I've said repeatedly in the last year, certainly, that is really good for destroying the global US-led imperial capitalist neo-colonial racist order, right? Because everyone who has been playing by that order, for better or for worse, like I was talking to Holly, if you go to Canada, for a long time, like Holly said, I remember going to Canada actually myself, and I had, because I'm in Hawaii, US occupied, but we have US dollars, so when I spend a $20 bill in Canada, or if I spend a $5 if I spend a US greenback $5 bill, I could get $10 worth of McDonald's or A&W or products at the mall. I was like, holy crap, this American dollar is amazing. I know why Hollywood makes all their movies. Like that's why the X-Men highways and the bridges in Vancouver, they're all called them Golden Gates, or the cities. Toronto is just like, it's just they slap New York, labels on things, but it's filmed there because your money goes like almost twice as far for a long time. It was, so, and anywhere in Canada would accept the US dollar, around the world, the US dollar, right? You can spend US dollars in many, many countries across the planet. Why is that, right? Because of the US world reserve currency dollar status and the privileged position that it holds, that you can print infinite amounts of, and you can control the flow of resources, energy, goods and services. I mean, whether it's the goods and services of McDonald's or random malls, or that's in the flows of energy coming from entire countries. I mean, whether that's the Nord Stream pipeline, African gold, South American agriculture, Asian manufactured products, the dollar, right? You need to have those. The world has needed to have those dollars based upon a global reorientation after World War II. And especially after the getting off the gold standard, that's where gold also comes in. Is now it's been pure fiat currency since the 70s, and that order, right, and the petrodollar, U.S. basically backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. military intervention, sanctions, coups, or starving and killing your economy, if not your people. That has been in effect for the last almost not quite century, but 70 years, at least. That system is all being thrown into chaos. Right, so the Vietnamese never really wanted to use U.S. dollars, but if you wanted to trade in global, if you wanted to buy energy from, some country in South America, and you were in Southeast Asia, you had to get dollars. If you wanted to buy, Chinese toys in Africa or in Europe, or if you want to buy energy for sure from Saudi Arabia, you had to get dollars, right? And that's a lot of what BRICS has been doing, is saying, well, China is encouraging, the BRICS are encouraging, currency to currency swaps, meaning I'll give you Chinese yuan for Argentinian currency. You give you Greek drachma for, you give us Greek drachma for the brand new electric vehicles from BYD that beat all American and Western vehicles that can't even catch up or even hope to. Thus spoketh the Ford CEO. They said we're all going to just keep shrinking in America, pretending like fossil fuel is the future, which Donald Trump and the MAGA, they really believe that false statement. Despite Ford saying the opposite. But you had to use US dollars, right? But now the currencies are being exchanged around the world more and more for goods and services. There's all kind of new payment systems. There's a new Visa, MasterCard competitor in Brazil. Not BRICS Pay, but it's like indigenous to Brazil, basically Visa, MasterCard equivalent competitor. That's ripping out the U.S. financials. That's obviously that's slightly more Democrat backing. So Donald Trump's not too sad about that. Visa, MasterCard. I'm pretty sure they're headquartered in East Coast, but I could be mistaken on that. But the bigger financials tend to be more in the Democrat liberal part of the U.S. Civil War. And but that was still U.S. power, though that's being lost, right? A lot of the global power tends to be leans more towards the liberal end of the spectrum. That's a lot of the reason why Donald Trump was on the wrong side when it came to the Ukraine war. A lot he was less about that specifically, and a lot of it was tying the Democrats tying Trump to Vladimir Putin. It was just seen as a kind of automatic strategy in that time. And it was part of the response to the Democrats not doing very well. I mean, if the Democrats really wanted to do well, don't put up a war criminal that bombed Libya into the Stone Age, call a lot of people degenerate. It's just a neoliberal capitalist ghoul that barely even pretends. Like Hillary Clinton was a terrible candidate. Obama was at least good at pretending to be a good person, not that he is one. He was so good at pretending it was really bad for the world because he saved global capitalism in the 08-09 financial crisis. But anyway, so I gotta wrap this up. I just keep going off into various tangents. So long story short, so coming back to Neofeud, but in order to stop the global reorientation as like in the chaos of the global financial instability, when it all shakes out, which will partially that will require the gold reserves of various countries being estimated to pin and to build a new economic order, right? To see who is holding which cards and who is not. Bitcoin, the Chinese were trying Bitcoin, but the thing is that Bitcoin was shown to be very unstable and easily cornerable, which the United States, which has actually a large quantity of all cryptocurrencies, is basically controlled by a handful of giant BlackRock mega private equity hedge fund mega bank, and also Western headquartered Wall Street oriented vessels, right? So that's not a good place to put the money because it's interesting idea. Like it's kind of like large language models, large model systems are interesting computer technology. Putting it all into word salad, psychosis generating software, and pretending like you can replace competent employees with that word salad software, which is what the U.S. economy is. That's not a good strategy. That's why the Chinese didn't do that, but the U.S. did, and that's partially why the U.S. is exploding. And so that's why the Chinese have all the gold. The U.S. has a lot of crypto. That's not necessarily going to be worth a lot outside of a capitalist scheme in which people are just holding those currencies just to hopefully sell it on to someone else to make more money. Whereas the precious metals they're long-term time tested, barring certain eventualities. They were, and they have a high probability of still being the places that will determine the future reorientation as the global financial system, the global economic system that I just talked about, the dollar hegemony, the U.S. central banking that prints mountains of money, breeds imperial coups, imperial military interventions, proxy wars, right? Destroys countries, forces their H-1B visa havers and Central South American impoverished, suffering workers to come to America for better lives, right? And to Western countries to be the oppressed working internal classes working in the farms, working in the biotech labs, right? The red farms in Texas or the blue biotech labs in California. So we rely on this perpetual sucking of talent, skill, and minerals in, exerting wars, coups, debt traps, sanctions, right? Dollar hegemony out and sucking all the labor into the first world. That's the imperial U.S. system, right? That's actually what it looks like. It's horrendous. It's horrible. But the dollar was stable. Like that was a stable system. Horrible, the Contras did horrible things in South America, but it was relatively stable. Like you'd use dollars in South America. You could go to North America, and you could you could be like, Al Capone in Scarface. Actually, that movie is actually a tragedy, but people just think it's just like a movie about a guy holding guns in a cool way and snorting a mountain of cocaine. But like many 80s movies, it was misinterpreted and never actually watched and used as a poster child for like right-wing simplistic bros. But the money worked in this system of like the narco trafficking and the CIA coups and the wars around the world, the Vietnam War, Korean War, all the wars in the Middle East. I mean, the Iraq War. The Iraq War killed more people than has already died, as horrible as it has been in PALSTINE. But it was still stable. You see, because the U.S. Imperial Corps had a lot of team players, and there was no competition to the U.S.-led capitalist unipolar. Largely white supremacist order, where European luxury goods are priced 10, 20, 30, 50 times above a purse made in China, no matter the quality was identical. Nigerian leather was renamed Italian leather, and you could sell it for 20 times as much, despite the fact that the Italians didn't even make it, right? It's just like labeling it, right? That's where the racism of the colonial era was part of perpetuating the global capitalist system, right? That relied on that cycling of resources and people in crushing people with homelessness. When they die, just discard them, don't care about them. Create alienated, isolated, individualistic, neoliberal, Thatcherite, little homunculuses that like resemble humans, but they just kind of like maximize their personal value and then like try to excoriate their actual deep unhappiness and deep moral, questionable moral situation on the planet by taking a lot of Paxlovid or taking a lot of happy pills and Xanax, right? And then just trying to self-help themselves with a bubble bath, right? The thing about I wonder how all my people in Libya are doing while I'm in Britain being a hedge fund finance trader, and just taking more happy pills when you feel sad about the global system that you're part of. But that was a really sick system. Obviously I've talked about it a lot, but that like the good thing is the sickness at the whole of humanity, that sick system is disintegrating. And in the Neofeud, the last gasp is that the CEO king of the who buys as the United States collapses. And actually, King Warren kind of sounds like Donald Trump. I did that on purpose. He sounds like Trump and he sounds like Clinton. He's both, right? He's a fusion of the Democrat and the Republican parties. The oligarch tycoons of the U.S. banking system and the tycoons of the Texas oil and the big tech of San Francisco, all in one person, right? And he creates the Demo-Publican Party eventually. And then but as the China and the global South rise, they have more gold in the reorienting of the global order. So King Warren flies into space, lassos a golden comet from the Kuiper Belt, and has more gold than all the gold ever mined on the planet Earth on every continent combined, which approximately fits inside of an Olympic swimming pool, by the way. Fun fact. They did about 10 years ago. And he turns that gold into an inverted pyramid, and he sits atop it on this floating palace at Versailles called the Fulcrum. And that is actually how the U.S. That's one explanation, if I have to explain it, how the U.S. in the Neofeud timeline survives in the not the U.S. but the U.S. Western imperial feudal capitalist techno kings and queens and CEOs, etc. That's how they survive, is by cornering the gold market during the great planetary economic financial schism and earthquake. Right, that's what's happening right now. And also they control the entire population by they do have AI and automation and robotics, so that the Neofeudal kings have millions and millions of robots with guns and weapons on autopilot, piloted by a handful of the most competent programmers to kill everyone on Earth that is basically goes against their order, right? Now that also can't happen. So that the Neofeud is missing those things because China has the most advanced robots and advanced batteries and advanced technology, and also the most advanced weapons, and also they have all the gold. So the U.S. plutocrat-led Skynet, unfortunately for them, fortunately for planet Earth and people and other organisms and just like life and faith in humanity. Fortunately for them, the U.S. doesn't have all the gold. It doesn't have a golden comet. The U.S. has defunded NASA and the National Science Foundation and Department of Education. So Donald Trump is saving the world from Neofeud hell. He's saving the world from the hellscape of Neofeud and Terminus Machina, right? Because Donald Trump destroyed America's capacity to ever get to the Kuiper Belt and try to capture a trillion-ton golden planetoid object. I don't know if one exists. I made that up because it's called science fiction. But if one exists, there is no possibility of that happening. The U.S. certainly can't mine it, and the U.S. can't refine rare earth. It doesn't have the capacity to mine gold itself, even if it wanted to. It also doesn't have the capacity to steal it anymore because the J-35 and the J-10, with the AWACS system and the Chinese satellite and Baidu network, outclass all the U.S. and its Western all full-spectrum warfare, satellite, Air Force, Navy, et al. And also cyber. The Chinese already outclassed the U.S. cyber warfare a long time ago, in 2020, when the Pentagon cyber chief resigned, saying the United States military's cyber war division is like kindergarten compared to the Chinese. That was 5 years ago. So they had a little edge on the Navy and the Air Force, but that's gone. So that's the good news. That's the good news for the Earth. Bad news if you're in the United States, though. Bad news if you're in Europe Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Locally, bad news. Globally, good news. Locally, not so good news. So anyway, I gotta go because I gotta go and I gotta stream in Twitch, and nobody shows up anymore. So I think I'm starting too late. Or not nobody shows up, but it's not a lot of people on Wednesday. People don't tend to show. Actually, there's a whole bunch of people. I think we had 100 people at one point. Thanks, Amy C3. But I do gotta get going. Anyway, long story short, I'm not here to. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer because I know the screen graphic doesn't look good. I do make cautionary dystopian science fiction for a living, so. I appreciate everyone who support our native-defined, anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, cooperative video games by getting Neofeud and Patreon and Ko-Fi support. Yeah, we do rely on that. I'm actually working on a new game with some other members of Silver Spoon Cooperative on a new 3D. It's gonna be like a Doom engine-based game set in the world of Neofeud 2 that actually will come after it. But I know it's sad and it's not great. But I mean, I see a lot of actors. One thing I just saw is a whole lot of actors are like, I don't even know how to act anymore. There's no, they're just trying to AI everything, and it's just really terrible. And there's a lot of indie film, and there's a lot of people doing indie stuff. Big Hollywood stuff is not looking too good. Alien Earth, we did just watch that, but they were kind of saying a lot of people just want to hear human people's perspectives, and so that's what I try to do, on this channel this is what I actually feel. And this is what I actually think, I mean, maybe some of it's not 100% correct, what's this, or maybe you don't agree with some of the perspective or conclusions or ideas, but I do have to be real about this stuff. Otherwise, I feel like I'm not doing people this, I'm not helping people. Because I feel like to an extent, the reason why, to an extent that the reason why we have been able to, Holly and myself, we have been able to do, as imperfectly as we have, Silver Spoon Cooperative, is because we have had other people be really honest, sometimes in a really not great way. Sometimes it was man, it wasn't fun to hear about the 0809 financial crisis when I just graduated. That wasn't fun. Occupy was I was listening to some, it was, some of it was, they were American journalists, but they're on the RT network. But that's the one play you got funded by Western corporate media. We all know that stuff. They lie all the time, and they're not on. It's all fake smiles and BS, right? And it wasn't fun to hear the United States is going to give all this money, billions and trillions of dollars, to the people who blew up the financial system, and they're going to bail themselves out. It's going to be the moral what is it called? The moral hazard is going to be horrible. Just the moral hazard of people being loving their country is going to be horrible. I mean, it was. That's why a lot of millennials were really, their eyes were opened up way big, and they're oh my God, what kind of nightmare country is this? I thought I was going to have some kind of decent life. And it's this economy is exploding and screaming. I mean, this is talking about 0809. But if people hadn't been honest, Empire Files, Lee Camp, Chris Hedges, a lot of people were not on American-backed television, even despite being Americans. Max Kaiser won the finance stuff, at that time. It was oh my gosh, this is really worse than I thought. There's all these problems. If I had listened to CNN, MSNBC, and mainstream beliefs, I would have just left. I'll just try to get a 401k. I'll just stick around in a mainstream American city. I'll just try to keep working, in California. I mean, that'll be, we've been in a lot worse positions. Not that we're in the best position ever. We're not rich, but we at least have an independent cooperative business that we can work at, and we get enough support that we can keep doing this education work. I don't feel like I'm censored and silenced in directly this way. I mean, algorithmically there's problems, but I couldn't talk about any of this stuff at my other jobs that I used to work at when I was working for U.S. government, U.S. corporations, U.S. nonprofits, and I literally lost 2 separate jobs for just trying to say true things about Hawaii or about the state of schools, education, or the U.S. economy and stuff like that. So it was. So long story short, that's why we gotta be honest about these things, because it's like Alcoholics Anonymous. You gotta admit you're in Empires Anonymous. If you don't admit it and you don't talk about the reality, you can't do anything about the situation to actually improve it. You can just live in a fantasy land. And maybe that feels good sometimes, but then you also have to like face the reality too. I think there's a line that I just read earlier today. There's like it's actually a Chandler quote that was being shared by someone on Black Liberation Media. Shout out to Black Liberation Media. That goes, what was it? This is not the best. Like, this world is not the most fragrant, not the best smelling world, but it is the world you live in. So it's kind of like, this is not the best world, but this is the world we live in. And I like living in fantasy and escape worlds for a little bit, but we also have to like face the world that we are in. And we can't run from it. You definitely can't run from it at this moment, especially if you are disabled and a not white person in a Home Depot in LA or anywhere else in the US. And that's not really a joke. That's like literally the case. And ICE comes for you. Or you're the superintendent in Iowa either. So, who was recently... I actually know some people that are under that superintendent. Anyway, I got to wrap this up. So thanks everybody for watching. Stay safe. Do mutual aid. Support indigenous people of color. Resistance. Anti-capitalist. Build as many cooperatives. Grow as much food as you can. Figure out how to get the Tylenol that you can get, where you can get it, how you can get it. Build as much anti-capitalist, anti-colonial, anti-imperial structures of all kinds that you possibly can. As stuff, as the chemotherapy, as the pains and the growing pains of the chemotherapy of a global cancer that is that whole system of racist capitalist colonialism is removed from the human collective system and the earth systems, right? Mutual aid yourself to survive as a cell within that, the pains that will inevitably come with this process. All right. If you want to support us, you can help us out at ko-fi.com/silverspook. Also, what's up, Colin? Thanks for stopping by. I'm trying to at least say hi to people that want to come in. Ko-fi.com/silverspook and patreon.com/neofeud is where you can give us ongoing support here at the Silver Spook Cooperative. We greatly appreciate that, as well as, of course, every Patreon does help us to keep on doing this work. You get updates on the behind the scenes of what we're working on, such as Neofeud 2. I'm almost done. I just finished the third or the fourth biggest character in total words, 10,000 lines of the 10,000 words of script. I'm almost done with that, and then I'm moving on to music. And thanks a lot to everybody who has helped us out with that so far. We're working on new projects. This book is still out. I made the cover for this book. Floating Isles, and doing more land back cooperative ecological and food garden restoration here in U.S. occupied Hawaii. And of course, you can also follow on Silverspook on Mastodon, at Silverspook Games at mastodon.social, at Silverspook Games at wandering.shop on Mastodon, or one or the other. You can also follow on Twitter at Silverspook Guy and or at Silverspook Games minus the E in silver on the Twitter. I'm getting out later than I wanted to. And you can also follow Holly at Allergic to Blue. You can follow Holly at Allergic to Blue on Twitter and also on Instagram. And and you can also follow. You can also get the games like Neofeud, which is on Steam. I had it up on the screen for a bit. It is an anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist cyberpunk retro adventure game I spent about 2.5 years working on, and it is on Steam. If you liked it, don't forget to leave even a very short review because it helps us get the game discovered in the Steam algorithm. You can also get Neofeud on itch.io along with other games like Indigistar, Decolonators, Pigeon McGun, and Woman is a book by Holly that's about critiquing the right-wing Christianity and MAGA type people in the story of Mary in the Bible from Mary's perspective. You can also thanks everybody on that list, and follow Holly and myself all over the place. And lastly, thanks to our Patreons for your support. Without your support, it is hard to keep doing this work, so thank you so much for that as well. And have a good one. Stay safe. Don't. Just stay safe. Keep building and resisting. And we'll see you next week.